when my daughter was ill, and it was, I've known darkness in my life, but that was the darkest period ever, you know. It was when I was doing Sweeney.
Actress Winona Ryder coming to her ex-fiancé Johnny Depp's defense in his court battle against a British tabloid. Ryder saying she was, quote, shocked, confused, and upset by allegations he was abusive towards his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Maggie Rulli has more.
The Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial is still making waves online, and it's getting messier by the day. While the court case was intense enough, now we're seeing tons of celebrities jump into the mix, and most of them are not exactly Team Amber. Everyone from Johnny's old friends to people he's worked with has something to say about her. And honestly, the tea is hot. Want to know which famous faces can't deal with Amber Heard and what got them so worked up? Let's dive into why some of Hollywood's biggest names have turned against her. Unexpected celebrity reaction. The Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial shook up Hollywood in a big way. Instead of staying quiet like usual, tons of famous people started taking sides. A lot of big stars and people who work in movies backed Johnny Depp, and they weren't shy about saying they didn't like Amber. This wasn't like other celebrity dramas where people try to stay neutral. Nope. This time, they picked teams.
No, it's just another decade gone by.
Right.
The only, maybe the thing that one can look forward to when you reach 50 is a future that's slightly more irresponsible.
The really interesting part? It was not just Johnny's friends speaking up. Even people who had actually worked in movies with both of them had something to say. What really hit hard were the stories from people who used to work with Amber. They all gave testimonies about what it was like to be around her, and it didn't help her case. This blew the case bigger than anyone expected, because everyone seemed to have an opinion, and most of them were not on Amber's side. Let's take a closer look at the celebrities who have chosen to speak out against her. The unwavering support. After the trial went viral, more and more celebrities started calling out Amber Heard. Amber tried to get people on her side, but it backfired. The more she talked, the more famous people came out to back Johnny instead. Pretty soon, some really big names in Hollywood were straight up saying they didn't believe her version of what happened. It turned into this snowball effect where once a few celebrities spoke up, others felt okay sharing their own thoughts about her too. People really turned against Amber when they saw how she tried to use the Me Too movement to help her case.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine we both had pretty intense diets and the food can be a little... And so I had this ongoing challenge with the chef that cooked lunch for us to spice it up. And this is a challenge that Jason's kids took to heart.
At first, some people weren't sure what to think. But the more Amber talked, the less people trusted her. She kept doing things that made everyone question if she was telling the truth. Even people who wanted to support her at the start ended up changing their minds. So how did Johnny's closest family members react to the storm surrounding him? Family and loyalty. While Johnny and Amber's marriage was falling apart, lots of people close to Johnny started speaking up about how they really felt about her. His daughter, Lily Rose, did not even go to their wedding. That's how much she did not like Amber. Later, when everyone was attacking her dad, Lily Rose jumped on Instagram to defend him. She told everyone he was super sweet and loving, and that what Amber was saying about her father wasn't true. It was not just his daughter either. Pretty much everyone who knew Johnny was saying the same thing. They just did not believe what Amber was saying about him. The more the trial went on, the more people came forward to say Amber was not telling the truth about what happened between them. Even Johnny's ex, Vanessa Paradis, stood up for him. She dated him for 14 years and had 2 kids with him, so she definitely knew what he was really like. She told everyone that Johnny was always super nice and never violent, basically saying Amber was making stuff up. Why did Amber's actions spark such a strong reaction from lawyers? Legal maneuvers. Divorce lawyers, especially Laura Wazer, who has basically handled every big celebrity split in Hollywood, were Johnny's lawyer during his divorce from Amber. And she had some things to say about how it all went down. Most celebrity divorces are messy, sure. But Wazer thought Amber crossed a line. After Johnny and Amber already agreed on their divorce deal, Amber tried to get it reopened, and Wazer didn't have it. She straight up said Amber was just trying to squeeze more money out of Johnny and rack up extra lawyer fees, and claimed that Amber was irrational and manic. Coming from Wazer, that was a big deal. This is because she has seen pretty much every dirty divorce trick in the book, but something about what Amber was doing rubbed her the wrong way. When one of Hollywood's top divorce lawyers calls you out like that, it definitely makes people pay attention. According to Wazer, Amber was not just looking for a fair split anymore. She thought Amber was trying to stay in the spotlight and get more money, even though she'd already gotten what they agreed on. Pretty much anyone who looked at it could see that Amber was trying to drag things out. What happened behind closed doors? Behind closed doors. Katie James, Amber's former personal assistant, talked about how Amber would treat her, and some of it was pretty shocking. The worst part, she said Amber actually spat in her face. Coming from someone who worked so closely with Amber, her testimony also hit differently. It was not just rumor or gossip. The testimony was from someone who saw what Amber was like when the cameras were not rolling, and what she saw made a lot of people question who Amber really was. Kate James did not stop there. She told everyone about how Amber would yell at her and treat her badly all the time. She said working for Amber was like walking on eggshells. You never knew what would set her off next. James basically showed everyone that there were two different Ambers. The one people saw in interviews and movies, and the real one who would scream at her staff and spit in their faces. After hearing all this, a lot of people started thinking maybe Amber was unstable or just manipulative. Was Amber manipulative and mentally unstable? A bold critique. Comedian Joe Rogan talked about Amber Heard on his podcast, and he did not try to be nice about it. He straight up called her crazy and picked apart her stories from the trial, especially the makeup story. Amber had said she used a specific makeup to cover up bruises from Johnny. But then the makeup company came out and said that the product didn't even exist when she claimed she was using it. He spent a lot of time on his podcast breaking down all the inaccurate testimonies that she gave during the trial. The way he talked about it on his show got a lot of people thinking, and people thought it was manipulative or delusional to lie about makeup that wasn't even available yet. His listeners started asking more questions about everything else Amber had said, and the more Rogan dug into the trial on his podcast, the more people started doubting Amber's side of things. And since he's got such a huge following, his take on it spread fast. Did people who had worked behind the scenes with Johnny Depp root for him? Defending a friend. Behind the headlines, celebrities like Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem both came out strong for Johnny Depp. Cruz worked with him on Pirates of the Caribbean, and she wanted everyone to know what he was really like. She said he was super nice and always looked out for others on set.
I came to Los Angeles the first time in 1994. I spoke no English. I only knew how to say two things, two sentences. One was, "How are you?" The other one was, "I want to work with Johnny Depp."
Both Cruz and her husband Bardem thought what was happening to Johnny was not right. They had seen how he acted around other people, and it was nothing like what Amber was saying. Javier Bardem did not just stand by and watch. He jumped in to defend Johnny too. He told everyone how Johnny stayed positive even when Amber was saying terrible things about him. It was pretty unusual to see both Cruz and Bardem speak up. They are usually private people who stay out of Hollywood drama. but they felt so strongly about Johnny that they had to say something. This made people believe that the reason behind their strong support was that they had seen how he acted when no one was watching. Let's explore the reasons behind the public outcry of some celebrities. The support behind the headlines. Ireland. Baldwin got real about the whole situation on social media. Alec Baldwin's daughter didn't try to be polite. She flat out said Amber was terrible and called her out for trying to make everyone hate Johnny. Baldwin went on Instagram and basically said what a lot of people were thinking but hadn't said out loud yet. She thought Amber was just playing games, trying to mess up Johnny's life and make everyone turn against him. Baldwin did not stop at just calling Amber terrible. She brought up the tapes where Amber actually admitted to hitting Johnny, which was pretty different from the story Amber was telling everyone else. Baldwin pointed out how weird it was that Amber kept saying she was the victim when there was proof she had gotten physical with Johnny. She told her followers that it was not about taking sides, but about being honest. Baldwin just said what a lot of people were thinking. If Amber was lying about being the victim, what else wasn't she telling the truth about? For her, the whole thing just didn't add up. What did Candace Owens have to say? Candace Owens' bold stance. Candace Owens jumped into the Johnny Depp trial drama right from the start.
It's Amber Heard, the actress. Right now you're watching a public trial between her and her ex-husband, Johnny Depp. This case has seized not just America, has seized the entire world, and it is something that every single person should be paying attention to.
She is known for saying exactly what she thinks, and she definitely had thoughts about Amber Heard. On her show, Owens did not hold back. She said Amber was straight up lying and trying to use the Me Too movement to make herself look like a victim. For Owen, it was not just about taking Johnny's side. She thought Amber was making it harder for real victims to be heard. Owens kept pointing to all the evidence that came out during the trial. She would talk about the recordings of Amber admitting to hitting Johnny, the witnesses who said Amber was the aggressive one, and how Amber's stories kept changing. And she concluded that she had seen enough proof that Amber was the one who was toxic in the relationship, and thought it was crazy how long Amber got away with telling her side of the story before people started questioning it. What role did comedy play in the trial? Comedy as commentary. Chris Rock went in on Amber Heard during his comedy tour. He used the wild stories from the trial in his shows, especially that one about Amber allegedly pooping on Johnny's bed. Their housekeeper actually confirmed this happened, which made it even crazier. Rock couldn't believe it. He used this story to point out how messed up the whole situation was. Rock was like, if someone is willing to do that, what else are they capable of? He basically said what everyone was thinking, just a lot funnier. Chris Rock knew exactly what he was doing when he picked the story for his shows. He didn't just tell it because it was shocking. He used it to make people think about everything else Amber had said. Rock noticed how bizarre the story was, but a lot of people were unable to understand the gravity and absurdity of Amber's actions, so he made jokes about them to drive home the point. The reason the story hit so hard was because it was just too weird to make up. How did the story become viral? The power of publicity. Chris Rock knew that sometimes the best way to show someone isn't telling the truth is to make people laugh about it.
It's like Boston, right? Now, how many times do you think a kid asked me to hang out at his house? Once. Once in like 16 years. David Moskowitz.
By joking about the weird bed incident in his shows, he got people thinking about Amber's whole story in a different way. Rock did not need to give some big speech about whether Amber was lying. He just told the story, got people laughing, and let them figure it out for themselves. By the time Rock was done with his tour, that bed story was not just gossip anymore. It was what everyone remembered when they thought about Amber and the trial. Chris Rock also made people realize that Amber was an actress and was just putting on a show. He referenced the fact that it seemed she was playing games with everyone, and this was because she knew when to cry at the stand, when giving a testimony, and her tears always came at the right moment. He also compared her crying moment to the happy selfies she posted on Instagram, which further helped a lot of people to Johnny's side in the Depp Heard trial. Did people who had previous relationships with Depp support him? A voice from the past. Winona Ryder stepped up to defend Johnny when she heard what Amber was saying about him. She had dated Johnny back in the 90s, and she wanted everyone to know that the testimonies of Amber against him did not describe the guy she dated.
Actress Winona Ryder coming to her ex-fiancé Johnny Depp's defense in his court battle against a British tabloid. Ryder saying she was, quote, shocked, confused, and upset by allegations he was abusive towards his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Maggie Rulli has more.
She told reporters that she was shocked because Johnny was loving, and she could not wrap her head around Amber's testimony in court. When people heard this from Amber, it weighed a lot, because the two were serious back then and were even engaged. So when she said Johnny was always gentle and kind to her, people believed her. Another ex of Johnny, Vanessa Paradis, who spent 14 years with Johnny and had 2 kids with him, could not stay quiet when she heard what Amber was saying. According to her, she knew a different Johnny. He was a wonderful father to their children and was not violent with them. In fact, she mentioned how she had spent over a decade watching him as a dad.
When my daughter was ill, and it was, I've known darkness in my life, but that was the darkest period ever, you know. It was when I was doing Sweeney.
And never for once did she see him act aggressive or mean. Were people just blindly supporting Johnny Depp? Loyalty in the spotlight. When all the drama was going on, Amber tried to get J.K. Rowling on her side. Made sense. Rowling's known for standing up for women, and Amber thought she'd back her up against Johnny. Here's the thing, though. Johnny was playing a big role in Rowling's Fantastic Beasts movies. Amber figured Rowling would kick Johnny out of the film once she heard about the accusations, but Rowling didn't bite. Instead of jumping on Amber's bandwagon, Rowling took a good look at what was really going on. She checked out the evidence and decided there was no reason to fire Johnny from the movies. David Yates, who produced Fantastic Beasts, also spoke about a different Johnny and argued against the claims that Johnny was violent. Both Yates and J.K. Rowling had a lot to lose by backing Johnny. If Amber was telling the truth, this is because supporting Johnny would look bad for them. But they had seen how Johnny acted when cameras weren't rolling, and they knew him as someone who was kind to everyone. So they decided to keep Johnny in the movies, which showed how they were ready to stand for the truth against all odds. Tensions among friends. Paul Bettany was Johnny's good friend, and Amber really didn't like that. Johnny told the court that Amber would get upset whenever Bettany was around.
Paul Bettany's a good friend that you've done drugs with, right?
That's a strange question. Paul Bettany is a good friend. Yes.
You've done drugs with him?
Yes, I have.
Like she thought he might turn Johnny against her. Things got messy when some texts between Johnny and Bettany got leaked. These weren't just regular messages. They were pretty dark jokes about Amber. Johnny and Paul were sending each other texts that made fun of her. But when they came out in public, it looked pretty bad. Johnny said in court that Amber could not stand his friendship with Paul. She would get jealous and make scenes about it. One time, they all had lunch together with Paul's family, and Amber ended up making Paul's teenage son cry. The whole thing showed how Amber tried to control who Johnny could be friends with. And when do those private texts come out? It just made everything more complicated for everyone. How bad was the text? A friend's loyalty and dark humor. The guys were joking about burning Amber. Dark stuff that probably should have stayed private. Paul tried to explain later that they were just messing around, but by then everyone had already seen the messages. These texts showed something important. Johnny's friends really didn't like Amber. The messages made people wonder why two grown men would joke around like that about her. What had she done to make them so mad? Johnny insisted that Amber was controlling, and she tried to keep him away from his friends, especially Paul. When those texts came out, it started to make sense. Here was proof that there was real tension between Amber and Johnny's friend group. The whole controversy changed how people saw the situation. It was not just Johnny saying Amber caused problems with his friends anymore. Now there were actual messages showing how bad things had gotten. Even though the texts looked pretty bad for Johnny and Paul too, they ended up making Amber look worse. So, which of these celebrity defenses of Johnny Depp stood out to you the most? Do you think their support helped shift the public's view of Amber Heard? Or did it only add to the controversy? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.